What's up, college football fans and Mean Green fans? Sonoy Valente here once again with the Mean Green Show. Today, joined by JD, and we are going to jump into UNT's latest recruiting action with three commits now under the three new commits under the Morris era. But before we get into all that, guys, you already know the drill. If you're a fan of college football or G5 football, consider hitting that like and subscribe button because that is truly all that we talk about. All right, JD. Well, thanks for jumping on with me. How's everything going with the family? I know you've been pretty busy lately.
Yeah, going good. Had a new daughter born a little over 2 weeks ago now. Has having a little bit of health trouble. We're currently in children's at the moment, but everything's kind of trending upwards. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get her home. Hopefully here by the weekend is kind of the tentative game plan at the moment. But everything's stable. Everything's good. And like I said, she had a rough 48 hours right off the bat, and she's just kind of set her back a little bit, but everything's looking like it's on the mend.
Well, that's good to hear, man. And you've not only been busy with your family and your new daughter, but also, not only this podcast, but jumping on other podcasts. And you jumped on with Craig Smoke and David Smoke on SiKem 365. I'm gonna leave the link in the description below. And JD just does a great job of just kind of talking about things that are going on with the new coaching staff and some really exciting stuff here in Denton. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. But okay, kind of jumping into the latest recruiting action with two offensive linemen via the transfer portal, and of course Chandler Rogers coming from ULM. We'll talk about him right after we talk about these offensive linemen. But really, JD, what are your thoughts on these two linemen that we're picking up from Georgia Tech as well as Texas Tech?
Yeah, Larry Moore, the first one, he was the one that committed first. Big kid coming from Missouri City. Was a pretty highly sought after recruit. Played his first year at Tech, and then as a freshman was able to break the two deep. So I mean, I feel like that's pretty impressive for a right tackle. He's got the size. I think he's 6'5", right there on that 270, 280 mark. So he's a guy that hopefully is going to come in and be able to not only hit the two deep, but also fight for a starting spot. I think that was one of the things we kind of heard about. But I don't think the offensive line we can classify as a weakness. I mean, I think it was actually one of the strengths of last year's team. I think one of the complaints I think you could say was maybe the depth. They just didn't have a lot. When you think about like our running backs, quarterbacks, we're six deep there. And I think at offensive line they had between 10 and 12, which is pretty low for a Division I FBS team. So I think that was the staff has put a kind of an emphasis on that. Wouldn't be surprised if they don't add another. But, yeah, the first one, Larry Moore. The second one, Georgia Tech, Palu Vaipule, actually a cousin to Manasseh Mose. He's a guy that when Seth was here, he was a highly sought-after recruit. Actually came and visited North Texas then. And at one point, I thought we had a very good chance of landing him. And Georgia Tech kind of came in late and took him away. But he's a guy that saw the field quite a bit there at Georgia Tech. So, he's a guy that's wanting to come back home, and I think that's what Coach Morris and his staff are going to try to take advantage of. I think they're going to use a lot of high school recruiting, but at the same time, when you have a chance to get Palu, a guy like them that can play at a Power 5, but maybe wants to come back a little closer to home, take advantage of. I mean, he's a guy that I think you're going to see somewhere on that starting five next year on the offensive line, without a doubt.
Yeah, and then finally, the one that obviously, I mean, it's just the position that fans get most hyped about in football anyway, and that's the quarterback. And Chandler Rogers transferring in from the University of Louisiana Monroe, and really put up some impressive numbers there with over 2,400 yards, 15 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. But really, the most, I think, the stat that jumps out the most at you is the completion percentage, which is just a shade over 67%, and Pro Football Focus really made it a noteworthy thing of how many drops that were had. And I've watched his Alabama game the highlights, whatever, and first couple of drives there's 2 drops. So I mean, you see him pretty quickly, not to throw shade at his former teammates, but seemed like he was doing a lot with a little there. And what I'm about to mention, Billy Sierra is the first one who I saw this from in one of the chats that we're in. and he said, they went to Lake Ridge, and he was the one who kind of ended up kind of taking some of Bean's time, Bean's senior year over there. So it's kind of ironic how things are kind of coming full circle. But anyways, I mean, you've mentioned on your Twitter as well that we were kind of in a bit of a recruiting battle with Cal for this one, and whether or not how we won that. I mean, it's just nevertheless, it's good to see, and it's also good to see that hey, this is a Division I FBS QB who's was the starter, would have been the starter again, leaving his school to come here to compete for the starting job, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I think a lot of the fans have him in their depth chart as number one as far as anticipation of what it will look like, but we'll see. But nevertheless, it's super exciting. When you get a quarterback of this caliber and magnitude. But what are your thoughts on Rodgers and what he brings?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a little bit of a question mark over the quarterback room. Ani was kind of the guy last year. We saw Stone Earl come in and play great. I mean, I think that Stone Earl's still going to get a shot to battle for the starting quarterback role. We've heard great things about JD Head, but this brings you in a quarterback with some skins in the wall. And, out of all the quarterbacks we've brought in the last few years, I know Grant Gunnell got to play a little bit at Arizona, but are you hearing static or is that just me?
I'm hearing that too. That's weird. It's gone now. Well,
okay.
Yep.
So
sorry about that.
Yeah, Coach Morris and people. This was a battle. Coach Morris, I think, did put a full court press on Chandler to get him. So I think I'm definitely going to count this as a recruiting win. I mean, this was not where we've seen in the past. North Texas was the last option or anything like that. This was a battle to win him. I think what Coach Morris has been able to do with quarterbacks the last few years. I think that played in a factor. But also Chandler wanting to come home. I mean, I think those were all key factors into winning the recruiting battle. But yeah, I chose not to watch the Alabama or Texas games just because I don't think that's fair. But I watched I think Texas State and Arkansas State were the two games I found the full games on YouTube and watched them. And the first thing that stood out to me was we complain about stuff about North Texas here and there, but there's a huge talent gap between those lower level Sunbelt schools to North Texas was I would say one of the top two Conference USA schools last year. So there was definitely a big talent gap. So I think that's going to help Chandler moving forward. Because there was drops, there was sacks. I mean, he didn't have time to throw. There wasn't the time that Ani had last year. But the things that stood out to me was, if there was a wide receiver open, he hit him in the chest. I mean, that's the thing that stood out was his touch and accuracy are, second to none. The second thing was, I remember when we had Bean, at any given second, he could take it to the house. And I think, Rodgers, if he doesn't have, if it's not the same exact speed that Bean had, it's still game-changing speed. I mean, he can take the top off of defense at any given second. So that's something that's exciting moving forward, a true dual threat. And like I said, he's got skins on the wall. He played last year, would have easily been the starting quarterback next year. So I mean, he's a guy that could definitely come in and take you to the next level, moving into the American.
Yeah, well, very exciting stuff. So we'll see how it all shakes out and see how the rest of this recruiting season pans out. And just excited to see some new additions and looking forward to seeing what's next. But thanks for your time, JD, and as always, go Mean Green.
Go Mean Green.